right, in today's episode of The Hot Take, have you ever had title issues to where a deal falls apart? Well, we got some good stuff for you coming up next. What is going on, and welcome to another episode of The Hot Take. I'm your host of BatchTV, Jesse Burrell. This is where we talk everything real estate, from wholesaling, fix and flip, and everything in between. Let's get into it. All right, we got two very special guests today out of Texas. So before we get into it, let's get a quick bio of each of you gentlemen.
Logan Fullmer, Kyle Westbrook. Been in real estate for about 10 years. Easy fix and flips and rentals early on. Started doing a little bit tougher deals. That became what we do. So at this point, we do about 200 transactions, a little over that every year in what I'd call dirty real estate deals. And then we're running between 50 and 70 wholesale deals annually at this point. So about 275 annual transactions.
And then what about you? How'd you get your start?
So yeah, Kyle Westbrook, been doing wholesaling for about 3 years or so now. Actually ran into Logan a little over 6 months or so ago. Had a deal I couldn't close, and basically a dirty deal had brought us together. We started working together ever since.
That's awesome. So you guys keep mentioning dirty deals. What exactly is dirty deals mean?
So to me, a dirty deal is a deal that you can't take to title. One person signs and you close in a couple weeks. That's a clean deal. A dirty deal means everything outside of that.
So our hot take today is like, how do we find the seller that you can't find, or heirs you can't find? How can you contract a property, you can't get a hold of this person, they ghost you, or there's family members on title and there's all these issues.
Yeah, so what happens is the seller and a realtor or seller and a buyer go to title company, they sign up a deal, and title comes back and says, you're one of 6 owners. Mm-hmm. And the owner says, well, why do you think that? And they say, well, there was this probate a long time ago and you were one of the owners. And they say, well, but mama said I could move into this house. It's my house. Right. Mama said that, judge said this. There's a difference. You got to find a lot of people.
Okay. Well, let's dive into it, because this is a topic that loses, fix and flippers, wholesalers, real estate investors, millions and millions of dollars every year by just giving up on a deal. And it sounds like you guys created a niche to where you're able to push these through and find creative ways to get this stuff done.
Yeah, right? There's multiple ways to skin a cat in these situations. I mean, every single one is unique. There's no, I'd say, one deal. There's a lot of similarities to them, but every single one's unique. So yeah, there's multiple different ways that we have to really dive in on each one, locate all these people, and then figure out what the best solution is. Okay,
so let's dive into it. What are a couple of strategies if you, let's say you skip chase someone with bad skip tracing, number doesn't come back? Most people just give up right there.
The first thing to do is you plug your name into Google. Google has almost everything these days. It has almost everything you need, but the last 10% of what you don't need is deeper than Google.
Right.
So our next best resource is the land records, which is the deed records. It's also known as the real property records, and there's one in every single county.
Right.
That's where all the deeds are stored. But on top of that, there are marriage instruments. There are assumed names instruments. You would be surprised when you find a return to after recording address at the bottom of a deed. That address to a person from 20 years ago might be the link that connects you to
opens the door
current person today.
That's crazy.
So you're inspecting every instrument and questioning every piece of data about an affidavit of heirship, a deed, a lawsuit. All that data means something.
Right. Are you having problem getting deals? Do you want to be a marketing king? Make sure to watch this video. Yeah, so give me a real life example of tying that together.
We actually had a wholesaler who I contacted him. He had sold a property I thought he had sold. I was looking for a comp, see if he had a recommended buyer for a deal that I'm trying to sell.
Right.
Turns out the deal that I was reaching him out about is still at title. It's been at title for about 3 or 4 months, and they can't get it closed. Mm-hmm. They don't know what's going on. All title knows is there's other people involved. We don't know who they are. And there's a crap ton of liens attached to this property. So what I did is I talked to him, and we've been having to build out a genealogy chart, go through ancestry.com, find out who all these dead people are and who their kids are and who their kids' are, put together names, vital statistics records, and really start to outline, okay, what does this makeup look like? Whose kid is who and who's still alive? Because ultimately we got to try to get in touch with the people who are alive.
So what about someone that, as you said, mama gave me the house, they think it's theirs, and then you come back, there's 6 other people on title. Then how do you readjust like their mindset of being like, I can't give you that price because of the work I have to put in?
Yeah, that part's difficult. There's a lot of hard conversations that have to be had with some of these folks. And honestly, the best way to do that is just putting together like these charts and digging deeper into the records like we were talking about before to actually show them the facts and say, look, we're not just saying this to try to get a discount because we're some investor. We actually say, look, this is what we're seeing. Obviously, we're echoing the same thing that the title company is saying.
Right.
We're just giving you more information now to connect the dots. And because of XYZ, you're not the only person involved in this. It's your cousin, it's your aunt, it's your grand uncle, so there's usually a lot more people, and we just have to kind of show them the steps as to why those people are still
sometimes
involved.
They're reasonable, and they'll say, I understand I only own 20%, not 100. Let's find my family and let's make it all work. Sometimes they say, I want it all, and unless I get it all, I'm not going to work with you. And at that point, usually we say, this is not a deal for us. And that's when the typical investor would say, I shouldn't deal with this either, because we don't have anybody reasonable in the game at this point.
So let's sum this up to the audience, and then let's give some final thoughts here. So you spend all this work and all these marketing dollars to get a deal contracted with somebody, and now a problem arises at title, and all this effort, most people just let go to nothing and say, okay, I'm going to move on to the next deal. I'm done with this. You guys have taken it so much further that you'll do whatever it takes, if it makes sense, to get the deal done. And you're also able to renegotiate because it isn't what they said it was. They may not have known this. And now you're actually helping someone because there's no other wholesalers or investors that are willing to go down this rabbit hole and have built a model like you guys have to get these through the finish line and actually close a deal and change someone's life. So let's dive into like some of the key points of, if someone rises to this problem, what should they do?
You get in that problem, you got to decide, I'm going to go deeper. In this case, I'll give you an example. There was one person they were in South America. We had to find this person because they owned less than 1%. And this deal would have made the seller a lot of money. It would have made us a lot of money, and it would solve 15 other people's problems.
Right.
We decided the person was in Peru. We finally determined that through interviewing family members. So they were an expat. We hired a Peruvian private investigator to locate that person because we knew that person would be familiar to that town and they would be much better in that town than we would.
Mm-hmm.
So they dug through that town, found the person, went to their front door, got them on the cell phone in front of us. We'd already sent messages to their Facebook Messenger, email, all these things. They got ignored. Private investigator put the phone in front of him. We had a conversation with the guy. He held us over the barrel because he knew we needed him to get it done.
The last one.
Right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, paying that private investigator $2,000 over the course of 4 weeks got the last signature to do the deal.
What would you say to someone that, instead of just throwing it away, what are a few steps that you should do before you make your decision?
Yeah, so definitely do your research. I'm never going to say just absolutely throw a deal away. Do your research. Ask the title company questions. Try to learn the situation that the title company is finding. Then get on Google. Look up your local laws for your county, your state, and then see how can you. There's always an underlying solution.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it depends on how deep you want to go. And one of the bigger things in my mind is kind of what you alluded to, being able to go back to your seller and renegotiate. Because at that point, you just ran into a situation where now either we can't do this at all and nobody can do it, or you're going to come down on price. You'll still get something, and it's a bigger opportunity for you, the investor.
So you mentioned asking the title company questions.
Mm-hmm.
Elaborate. Like what calibrated questions do you need to ask them to make sure that you're not wasting your time?
Yeah, so I actually went through this when I stumbled upon doing this type of stuff. They had told me that the person that I had contracted with was not the only owner. At the time, I had no idea what that meant. Tell me more. What does that mean? Who is this person that you somehow found? Where did you find these people? Where did these names come up from?
Right.
What does that even mean? Why do I need to go find these people?
Right.
So once I started asking those more open-ended questions, it educated me more on the process. And then there's so many other doors that'll be open at that point too. Why different liens and judgments and stuff are attached to the property based on those other people, not your seller. So you just have to ask questions and do your research.
So if anybody gets anything from this episode, I want them to understand that, a lot of coaches, a lot of people are going to teach you how to wholesale, fix and flip, buy rental properties. What's not taught is the good people, or the people that really thrive, are the people that know how to get creative, are the people that don't take no for an answer. And I don't know if you could teach that. It's just you guys were both curious and being like, why?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to figure out a way to make this get done. And I bet a lot of people come to you with problem properties like this, and then you guys get paid off of them too.
Yeah, so sometimes folks are curious enough to say, I want to do more, but they realize it's too much for them, and they'll bring it to us as a lead, and we either make them a partner with us or we pay them for that, so they can make that decision once they've become curious. But sometimes they have a curious mentality, and they have the spare time because there's no opportunity cost for that hours, and that's the perfect person to say, I have the curiosity and I have the available time without opportunity cost. Let me go deeper. That's the person that should go deeper. The person that has other stuff going on, they're the ones that should sell it off.
Right. So before we go, this doesn't have to be related to anything in real estate, just entrepreneurship. Give one gold nugget to the audience to where you think it would really help them.
I encourage people to always remember, just because you could doesn't mean you should. We've looked at that at buying other businesses. We've looked at expanding our own business, changing our business model, bringing on business partners. And the bright, shiny object syndrome is a killer for entrepreneurs. And we always remember, stay in our lane. And just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Right. That's great advice, actually. And then,
yeah, so this is actually something that I had to tell myself over and over and over again before I actually did it. But my recommendation would be, if you're feeling strongly about something and you're ready to take a leap, don't be scared. If you're looking to, leave your job and you're making X amount of money, be smart about it, calculate it, make smart decisions, but don't ultimately let fear rule you. I was struggling with that for a long time. I made my jump.
That's so meaningful to you right now.
I could not have made a better decision.
Yeah, you probably took a way longer time to make your jump. We talked about this off camera, but
yeah.
I mean, you made a small fortune before you're willing to quit your job.
I did, yeah. I probably put more in my nest egg than what a lot of people would have before they took the jump. I
also did that.
But I made me feel comfortable. That's where my comfortable point was. So definitely make yourself feel comfortable before you take the jump, but don't be afraid to take that jump.
Yeah, my comfort was broke, and I didn't give a shit.
Yep.
To be honest with you.
That's more common with entrepreneurs than the way we did it.
Yep.
Yeah, I had no money.
Living in the basement till you're rich.
Yeah, I had two partners. They both had money at the time. We each threw like $5,000 in for like direct mail campaign. I had like $7,000 in my bank account. Didn't tell them. I was like,
wow,
gotta make this work.
That's the poker player in you. Wow.
So I was like, well, I've had no money before, so
let's know what that's like.
Let's go back to it.
Awesome. So if someone wants to get a hold of either of you guys, social media, how do they get a hold of you?
Kyle Westbrook, Logan Fullmer, Asset Resolution Partners. Pop us into Google. Boom.
You guys have Instagram or
Facebook? We're more active on Facebook. We don't have a ton on Instagram, but we both have accounts.
Boys, thank you much for coming on. It's so amazing to have you guys fly in from Texas and kind of share some creative stuff that you've done. So thank you so much for coming in.
No doubt. Happy to be here.
Logan.
Thanks for having us.
Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining another episode of The Hot Take. Make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to BatchTV, and until next time, let's get it. Check out these other videos right here. Follow me on social media.